Welcome to the MS Dev Show, episode number 164. This episode is from our 3-part special from that conference in Wisconsin Dells.
This episode of the MS Dev Show is brought to you by Expose, the market leader of .NET and Java APIs for file business formats. Natively work with DocX, XSLX, PPT, PDF, MSG, MPP, image formats, and many more. Raygun gives you complete visibility on errors, crashes, and performance problems affecting your end users. Replicate issues in seconds rather than digging through log files or having to rely on users to report errors or crashes. Raygun gives you a window into how users are really experiencing your software applications. Check it out today at raygun.com.
Carl, that conference, we're here.
Yeah, we're here again. Third year in a row. That's awesome.
Yep, and we have some really bad news as well.
Yeah, we do.
Unfortunately, you're going to be losing your MVP status.
And it's because I've been making some decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're good or bad or not, but
some people would say bad decisions.
Some people would say bad decisions.
And you're about to come clean. So
yes.
What's going on?
So I am losing my MVP because I am joining Microsoft, and you cannot be both an MVP and work for Microsoft at the same time.
Exactly. So now people are just going to think the whole show is, shilling for Microsoft. So.
But no, and that's one of the things that, we've explained a few times, but it might be worthwhile explaining again. I mean, this is something me and you do during our free time.
Yep.
We have full creative control. Nobody tells us what to say or who to talk to, except for us.
Yep. And we tend to call it as we see it. I mean, we'll bash Microsoft when they deserve it.
And also, you guys hold us accountable as well. I mean, we did get that feedback a few weeks ago that says we weren't hard enough on our guests, and we're taking that to heart. So if there's something you guys want to see, this is as much for you as it is for us.
Yep. So we hope that you like the cast of guests that we have lined up. A lot of them were speakers, and we hope that you enjoy the content that we put together for you.
Right now we're talking to Abe Guayambade, and I murdered that, so that's my first pass. We're gonna stick with that. You're an architect at Emergent Tech, and you said you're a consultant, and you gave a talk today about automobile tech, in particular Apple's and Android. So where did you start with that? What is this? Car stuff.
What's the deal?
Because I mean, I'm a consultant too, but I'm in enterprise stuff. So to me, car stuff, that sounds awesome, and I can think of all sorts of cool things, but I don't know any of that stuff whatsoever. So, what kind of platforms are these?
Okay, so as far as technology and how I got into it was, I started off back end. I've been a Microsoft baby for a long time, so doing a lot of .NET, started back out with Classic ASP, that kind of stuff. Went into VB.NET, went into .NET. Along the whole career, I got a chance to work at General Motors in Atlanta. They have a center for .NET excellence. And a lot of that was working with car systems and car data. So, for example, the Cadillac Q systems, which is the whole touch interface, we got exposed to a lot of how those systems work, what kind of data they can retrieve from there. So I was quite intrigued not only on how those systems work, but I was also intrigued by the UI in them, right? Because if you have like a Ford vehicle, they have their blue look, and some of the old Chrysler, if you've been around, they had the red dashboards and that kind of stuff. And I was curious how they mitigate those issues. Like, how do you design for UI that's going to change not only from manufacturer to manufacturer, but also how do you even design when 2 years later they're going to do a refresh on that vehicle and then everything's going to change again, kind of thing. And from architecture standpoint, that really got my attention. And I've been a big sci-fi fan. So, of course, the coup de grams on Star Trek had that whole kind of feel to it. I'm a big Iron Man. So everything's the UI on the whole Java system.
Yeah.
Right? So I was curious how I can get those things and get cars and to work. And because of that, I started getting into a little bit on the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, because it allows you to use the car as a second screen for your existing app. So I thought, that's kind of cool. So you get more of a native usability, native UI to help kind of manage that learning curve on that. And then along the way, I got invited to a Ford Developer Conference in Las Vegas, which was a 48-hour hackathon. And at my age, that's a bad thing. That's just one of those things. I was not ready to be up for 48 hours straight.
It's not healthy for anybody.
No, it is not. And they give you a lot of sugar to help you out, but it was just, it was something. But there is where I really learned that not only was Apple CarPlay and Android Auto really taking off with the manufacturers, but it had a lot of limitations. Most of it was just pumping the UI. You couldn't really read anything out of the vehicle.
Well,
You know.
actually, can we take a step back? Because I kind of want to level set.
Okay.
Because, one thing that I've seen in vehicles is like the in-vehicle system is always way behind. And my understanding is always that they kind of it's kind of like with NASA, right? They have to lock in like which camera they're using, and then like that gets locked in like 4 years ago, and then they design a car around all these systems. So everything is always just terrible. Always has been my experience. Like I'm just happy to have like Bluetooth. Like, just give me my Bluetooth and I'm good to go. So historically it's been terrible. So now it sounds like now we're kind of up to where you were talking about. So it seems like the approach that they took was like, okay, well, technology keeps changing, and we don't want to be like DOA, so we'll just mirror a screen. And it sounds like that's how those technologies work. So I guess resume.
Yeah. And you're correct. And it's still the same problem in cars. That hasn't changed. As you know, it's quite complex to completely come up with a brand new vehicle, other than a simple refresh. And they have to kind of do a lot of forecasting what's going to come out. So you're correct. A lot of it is between 4 to 5 years behind because they kind of assume what's going to be the next technology. The cool thing about Android Auto or Apple CarPlay was because the manufacturers, they didn't have to do much. It's going to be your phone trying to push the screen.
Yeah.
So if they can give you a tethered USB connection or work through Bluetooth, they could give you a very minimal product that makes you look like, oh, I'm really ahead of technology. And then next year they got to do is switch up a little bit. To give you an example, if you had a 2015 Ford Mustang, you had Windows embedded.
I actually do.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, so you have Windows embedded in your sync system, right? I have a 2016 Mustang, right? So I have the Sync 3, right?
Yeah,
and
I'm very well aware that they switched out from Sync 2 to Sync 3, yes.
Yeah, so that was a big change for a lot of people. It's like, what? I can't do that, right? And of course, they switched to a Linux-based operating system rather than Windows embedded kind of thing. But even that, as well as it worked, if you didn't have a 2017 with the same Sync 3, you couldn't do CarPlay.
Yeah.
Apple CarPlay because the USB hubs were obsolete. So you have to order another US hub up and get an update to do it, which I've done on my car, kind of thing. So they're still kind of trying to gauge ahead. And part of the stuff that I was presenting this morning is how manufacturers have said, okay, that is too tremulous. Let's try to get something else.
Yeah.
And now they're actually trying to do the, what do you call it, Linux operating system for the car with the Linux operating system, and they're going with Geneva, which is one of the companies that handles that. So they completely came up with a different version of Linux that's going to be working in all these vehicles at the same time. So then it's not an issue of, Ford's design is maybe 4 or 5 years trying to go this way, Toyota's trying to go that way, and they're hoping that other third-party technologies will help. They're coming together as a consortium. So right now it's really Ford and Toyota really pushing it.
Yeah.
But there's still a marketing issue. Toyota doesn't want to say they're using Ford technologies, and Ford doesn't say they're using Toyota technologies because everyone wants to have their branding,
Yeah.
But as you know, I have a 2016 Mustang. I have the EcoBoost, right? Nobody knows. That's a Mazda engine. Right, but if you buy a Ford, you're not expecting to have a Mazda engine in it, kind of thing. But it was the best solution from architecture standpoint. You choose the best solution for what it is. But it helps with them when they're developing this kind of technologies to eventually come together and say, let's work together. So some of the caveats with stuff like CarPlay is being fixed by the sync systems like they're developing, which of course that is really smart device link that Ford took and put the uplink and sync interface on top of it.
Yeah.
But now since they use the same thing as Toyota, you can write an app that will work with both, but now you can actually get vehicle data, out of it rather than just being able to display your screen on it. If you're using Android Auto, you can display a screen, but you can't read anything from the vehicle. Kind of thing. So which limits what your application
Yeah.
can.
Okay, my head is spinning now, so you got to help me here. So maybe the best way to look at this, because it seems like we're in the middle of this transition and stuff is actually kind of a mess. So really, like it's funny because like the navigation systems like started getting better in the car, and again because the tech is old, so. Then I switch over to my phone and I'm like, I don't want any of this stuff. I have a giant screen, just like you do. And I actually use it for pretty much nothing other than like changing the temperature. And actually there's physical buttons for that. So I barely even use it for that. So like really all I want is, I just use my phone and really all I want is Bluetooth. So I guess my question for you, so if you look out, I don't know how far in the future you can see based on the knowledge you have, but let's say 3, 4, 5 years in the future, like what is it going to look like when I get in my car? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So right now the systems are evolving on 3 ways. About 4 years, let's say in the future, the network topology is changing in all cars. Right, they all be in some kind of token ring. So now they're actually going to more of an event bus type system.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which actually makes things a lot easier because if you work on your car, like I was fixing
Because they were
my
using
car,
like CAN bus, right?
they're using CAN bus,
Yeah.
but CAN bus was a token-based network.
Yeah.
So everything connected to that one token and broadcast the messages across.
Right.
The problem with that is we all know anybody who worked on anything that was a bus type technology back then, especially hub-based,
Yeah.
is you busy up the signal because everything is broadcasting, is not
Yeah.
talking to anybody.
So if you want
directly.
to turn your turn signal on, like it might have to wait.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it may have to wait. So now with the whole event driven, if you do the turn signal, it broadcasts that is your turn signal for left, and whatever cares to respond to it responds to it.
Yeah.
So think of delegates and callbacks, that kind of thing. So that helps a lot.
It's like pub sub.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier for them. So that's one of the biggest things, which is cool, which has allowed some of the new technology that people are allowing to go in the vehicles. The other part is because they're coming together with this Linux operating system. The only thing they have now to do is put a UI that is branded to the manufacturer.
Okay.
So for us developers, we're always targeting the same operating system behind it. So it makes it easier. If you want to turn the lights on the vehicle, you don't have to worry that this is the command for Toyota or this is the command for Ford. You're always hitting that same abstraction layer to get to it. So kind of like
great.
Cordova and PhoneGap did for, if you're
Yeah.
doing hybrid apps, you target the API and then the others automagic, kind of
Okay.
thing.
So I'll be running Linux on that. And then what will the interaction model between the phone and that computer look like then? Is it? Yeah.
The way that works right now is, so let's say you have an Android phone.
Yeah.
Right. You set up a service that runs on the Android phone, and it's basically waiting to hear those messages coming back and forth. And what it does is you talk to it through a proxy, which comes already built, you download, install in your app, and that proxy uses remote procedure calls to the actual head unit and requests information to it.
Okay.
So if you're used to web, it's like similar to a promise. You send off a call, and then it lets you know via callback when that information is available. So you can ask how much gas does it have, and that kind of things. But because of that proxy, which is developed by each manufacturer, and it's kind of abstracted away from you, you don't need to care so much about the low-lying details. You just need to ask for information. But it also gives us the ability is that every manufacturer now who's part of that has the same exact interface that's going to be available.
Yeah.
So if you have an 8-inch screen, or if you took the base model, which may have a 4-inch screen, they're both guaranteed to have at least 3 lines of text.
Yeah.
So if I need to display something, I go to line 1, line 2, or line 3. Now, how that ends up on the UI is up to the manufacturer to figure out the best way to present that information to the user.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of experiences are we going to start seeing on our cars with kind of this more standardization?
Well, so the biggest ones right now that got everybody excited is, for example, if you're using Android Auto, right? You can use Google Maps on your 8-inch touchscreen in the screen. So you don't have to use your phone and put it in a holder, that kind of thing, right? The new cool thing is, which I actually have a YouTube video on that, is I use Waze.
Yep.
Now, so when I go to navigate on the 8-inch screen, because if you don't have a built-in navigation, I can hit the push to talk on the steering wheel and says navigate to Kroger or whatever store it is. Ooh. And then on the screen, he asks me, do you want to use Google Maps or do you want to use Waze? Or do you want to use the native navigation that came with the car? Right?
No.
So exactly. That's always a no. And first of all, you got to keep buying those DVDs to upgrade it, to update it. It's like ridiculous, right? Kind of thing. So that helps a lot. A couple of other things that are really, really cool coming out, like AAA has a similar product that they're doing now, because most people know AAA is used for emergency roadside services, right? They had hook up into the vehicle for when like a low tire pressure comes on, check engine light comes on, their UI automatically come up and say, do you need a tow truck? Do you want to contact us, right? So that's more intuitive to the owner, and it already looks like something that come in their car. So it's a win-win for them. You didn't have to find their phone number, find what your ID number is with AAA and call them. They already know what's actually wrong with the vehicle, kind of stuff. Some of the other cool stuff that they're doing, I'll probably say Ford actually did it on the 2017 CES Consumer Show. They have the Amazon Echo now. In 2017 and above, it's going to be a native app. So you can actually get in the hood and say, turn the thermostat on at home, or raise the temperature, and it talks to your Amazon Echo at home, and that talks to whatever automated equipment you have at home, kind of thing. So because of that standardization is helping match that bridge between what we're used to doing on the phones and what we're used to doing at home. And now you don't have to worry about when I get home, I got to do this, that kind of stuff. So it makes it easier for us to develop. It makes it easier as a learning curve. I'm used to push to talk in my car. I push to talk it. What actually handles that? It doesn't matter.
So do I have to buy a new Mustang every year then to stay up to date with the tech?
Well, no. Yeah, I'll probably say no, depending on how old yours is.
Well, it's a
If you-
2015.
Yeah, if you have like a 2016 one,
Yeah.
they've already pushed out upgrades.
I know.
So if you had the Sync 1 point something, you got to Sync 2.2.
Yep.
As long as it's software, they'll keep upgrading it. Now, if there's a physical hardware limitation, then you have to upgrade.
Yeah.
A couple of things they're addressing. I think Ford and Toyota is about to release theirs. It's called OpenXC standard. It's an OBD2 sensor.
Okay.
You plug into your OBD2 port and gives you wireless internet. And then it acts as a buffer to the rest of your system if it's not built in. Then your phone could still tether with that and control it that way. You don't get the really lovely UI integration, but you can still get the needed data in and out of the vehicle.
Okay.
For all the cars.
Okay.
That's how they address it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, so let's say I had a 2018 Mustang,
Okay.
which is really nice.
It's got nice
Yeah, so if I had that one, am I pretty future proof then? Do you think? I mean, do you think for years there'll be upgrades to get the latest and latest? Like, are we getting to a more upgradable platform? Because I know mine. There's been one update since I bought the vehicle, and what it did was they turned it on so you can hold down the button and talk to Siri.
Yes.
That was like their one major feature, and it took, I want to say, 2 hours to update.
Yes.
And of course I had to go somewhere, so my car was updating while I was driving it.
That's not nerve-wracking at all.
That was a little scary. Like, it's like your car is updating, and I'm like, I'm driving it. Like, please continue to keep working. So, so I mean, like, are we finally the era though where we think we can actually keep our cars like reasonably up to date then?
I'll probably say yes. So there's really three mitigating issues. The first issue is strictly business. What features are you going to leave behind for the new models?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the problem, right? Nowadays, let's say, for example, phones. You don't really need to buy a new phone. When I grew up in the 80s, you got your little flip phone, and you had that feature. If you didn't, you had to buy a new phone.
Yeah.
Now you have an Android phone, download the new app, right?
Yep.
And now you got Snapchat,
Yeah.
you got whatever kind
Yeah.
of thing. The problem with cars is anything that goes in that car, one, it has to be a good enough thing where we can offer that to everybody else, and yet still have something new to reveal the next year, kind of thing.
Yeah.
The other part is they still got to go through the highway safety, right? So a simple thing is like allowing somebody to talk and say, turn the headlights off or turn the wipers on, has to make sure you're not violating laws. Like, I'm from Georgia, so if you have the wipers on, the lights have to be on. It's a national highway law.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so they require it. Same thing with vehicles. You can't have more than 4 lights pointing forward at any one time. That's why a lot of new cars, you turn the blinker on, one of the lights goes off, or the fog lights or something goes up,
Wow.
because you can't have 4 pointing
This is super.
forward.
There's I think there's lots of really cool facts locked up in your head.
Yeah,
Around
they're
It's pretty
cool
neat.
until you're trying to program around them.
Yeah, exactly. Until you get to write the software, then it's just, that sounds horrible.
Exactly. Then you're a great idea, but like, what do you mean I can't do that? Kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So those things are really there. But I think, honestly, we're going to get to a point, and I'll say 2020, probably the earliest, to where it's just going to be downloading the new update on the vehicle, refreshing it, because it makes it easier for them. They get an earlier time to market.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, there's a few bugs, we'll address them in the next release, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Now, the only problem that's coming up to it, which is with everything else, the more software we get in our life, the more downtime, which is what you talked about. I have a Logitech Harmony remote at home. Sometimes when I use it, but it needs to be updated first. So there's that downtime, kind of thing. Right. It's the same thing with the car. If you update sync, it took 2 USBs to update that thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, update kind of stuff. So it's a penalty we're going to have to deal with, because if we want the flexibility, we're going to have to deal with some kind of amount of downtime in order to keep up the latest and greatest technologies, or else we're going to become obsolete. Because if we don't plan that downtime to upgrade to the next version, however long that takes, then we only going to have what got shipped with the vehicles, But at that point, most of the cars are going to be using the same operating systems. They're going to be all upgradable. It's going to be easier to say, take it back to the dealership, because we all take it people here. But most people, even in the Q system with Cadillac, they almost lost sales, because when they put that Cadillac out, it was all touch. And the biggest owners of Cadillacs are elderly folks.
Yeah.
They have like, how do I turn the AC on? They used to knobs and sliders when they grew up.
That's a screen. That's not an interface. It's a
That's
screen.
not an interface. What do you mean I got to hit this weird looking thing that looks like a snow pile, to get the AC on, right? That's the thing. It's just, you kind of get jetted as you go into technology, but it's a
Yeah.
huge learning curve. They actually had to have experts in every dealership. You buy it, they actually sit there and teach you how to use the touch screens, to where they start giving iPads now.
And I wonder, like, how much Tesla is going to get that with the Model 3, because they've shown the interiors of those, and it's very Spartan interior
Very
with nothing
Spartan.
except for a screen there.
Absolutely.
And with that coming to a much different demographic than their previous ones, they're probably going to have people totally unused to using it like that.
And they are. And one of the things I've heard about, I haven't seen the video myself, is there's going to be released videos. There's one of those, like, hey, thank you for buying a Tesla. This is how you turn the lights on. This is how you turn stuff on. To even things like learning curve. Like, one of the things that people are so far not so happy about the new model is the gauges on that big center dial. It may not be such a big deal, but most people are used to having line of sight, just look down.
I'm not a fan of that.
But it is there. So people are like, I got to look over there, that kind of thing, to see the dial kind of thing.
Officer, my speedometer is not here. I can't look at it without taking my eyes off the road.
I swear it's going 55.
Yeah, sir, can I see your car logs?
Yeah,
Pull it up on the screen.
And that is an issue. It's actually, you brought that up,
Yeah.
right? It's like that guy who had the accident in the Tesla.
Yeah.
And he was saying it was the car's fault. And they'd be like, no. 5 seconds before that, the car warned you need to take over.
Yeah.
3 seconds, he told you to hit this button and you didn't. It's not our fault, right?
Well, and that'll be interesting, like, if the police can ever get that, like, on demand. Like, if you get pulled over, if they can, they just get that. That's where some of these the laws aren't caught up to the technology.
They're not. And one of the biggest things, actually, when I was at that hackathon, where my eyes were kind of cross-eyed by the end of the day, is they had a ethics test. Because the biggest thing they're having right now is cars have to make decisions that we normally make.
Yeah.
Right? And one of those things was the car has determined that the accident is imminent. It has detected there's people in front of the car and there's people in the car. One of those has to die. The car needs to make a decision. Either the occupants are going to die or the person in front of the car is going to die. And the car needs to be able to choose. So they've actually started building algorithm in these vehicles that can detect who the person in front of the car is. Right, and one of those tests, which thank God is not public, but they do give you results, is they'll put like a grandmother-looking figure in the middle of the street, and then they'll put like your wife in the vehicle and say choose, which of them dies. Right, these are things that we normally kind of think. If it's your friend, you may be like, If it's your whole family in the front of the car, you may be like, I'll take the hit. Right, to the car, there's no emotional aspect to it. So it needs clarified data.
It's got to score it. Yeah.
It's got to score it. If there's a doctor there, or there's a homeless, and they even put like a homeless person there, and then they'll put like a pregnant mother in the car, and they say choose.
Yeah.
Right, and you got to make these ethics, and at the end they give you your score, and you'll be like, oh, I'm a bad person. That's the thing, right? Because they give you your results, kind of thing. They don't share with the other people with the hackathon.
I'm going to kill the most people possible.
Exactly.
Or is it my friend that still has my chainsaw?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because he may have to take that hit. So,
I don't like that guy anyway.
yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of interesting things like that. And then, of course, the word about the legalities, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
The car is making that decision. The person who actually the car decided is going to hit them.
Well, I mean, that
sue.
brings up another point. If we're having that two-way exchange of data between the car and the phone, where is it? Where it's the car manufacturer? Where is it the maker of the app of the phone that's controlling the interface at the time?
Yes.
I mean, you get a really interesting split there.
You do. And right now what they're doing is because they're only allowing the apps to run on the phone.
Yes.
The immediate benefit to that is if, like right now we have a rental for this conference, I still have the app, so it should work in that car as well. Yeah. The other thing they're trying to do about that is if you're using this common smart device link is they're putting you behind a buffer. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to cover all the legalities because nobody's going to probably sue me. They probably want to sue Ford because they have more money, that kind of thing. So they're going to try to stop you from turning off the lights when the wiper's on and those kind of things. So that's the kind of like obstruction layer. They say, we're not going to let you do what you're going to do. But now if you're going through like OBD2 plugs and all that, and when you can do whatever you want to do, then it's the app maker who's at fault. And hopefully somebody's not going 90 miles an hour and you activate the emergency brake. Kind of thing, right? Because those things are issue because the new cars, there's no physical brakes to pull anymore.
Yeah.
You hit a button and the brakes are there. Yeah, it's all electronics kind of stuff. So you had to be a lot more careful, and that's what they're really trying to mitigate is when you make an app, how dangerous is this app going to be? And that's why they're trying to give only read data right now rather than full control.
Ease the developers into that level of access until the industry and the legal system can catch up to at least some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they don't want you to write to, like, for example, in most cars, they have, as I said, 3 levels. They have the high-speed bus, which is emergency systems only. You know, because you want the airbags to go off as quickly as possible. If you're not a very good developer and you have some crazy loop running and you're busy up that network, well, the airbags are going to be delayed.
Sorry, we're adding support for Siri. We can't deploy your airbag right now.
Exactly. Right.
Please check back in a minute.
Yeah, it's like, whoops. You know, another thing. So, and that's why they're mitigating. They separate the networks in the cars so you can have some access, but not hinder the really, really important things, as well as put that software buffer saying, hey, we allow you to query, we'll let you to control. And if you need to control, you better have a really miraculous reason to let us know so we can allow you to do that with your app. So right now, Smart Device Links has a huge file. I think it's actually in JSON that allows which permissions your app allowed to activate on that vehicle. So they can actually lock that out and says, we don't care what code you wrote, you're not allowed to mess with lights and stuff like that.
But I mean, bringing it back to one of the examples that you had earlier, I really think that, you know, there's some really cool, powerful things you can do just with that read, like that AAA example that you have. I mean, if it detects that I blew out, a tire or something, not only would it be helpful for it to like have that ready for me to hit the button to call, but then it can transmit to them like, hey, they blew out a tire. You know, it's on the left rear, and these are the people that can service it. I mean, that can really help automate and make it so I can get back on the road faster.
Yes. And even a little bit better, I kind of designed to that. There's a company right now that's actually working on a prototype. There's a non-disclosure statement, so I can't mention the company. But what they're actually doing is they're working with medical records. One of the biggest problems that the EMTs have is they'll show up. Some people may be diabetic or they're on blood thinners or they're whatever kind of stuff. They don't know that information when they show up on site, kind of thing. So to them, what they're actually trying to do is, because all these cars, whether you have OnStar or otherwise, they have a way of notifying emergency services. They're actually working on an interface that would actually send your medical records the minute you get into an accident of all the occupants in the vehicle. By the time they show up, they know this person is on blood thinners, so they're going to need clotting agents in case they're bleeding and that kind of stuff, or they're diabetic. You know, we may have to check for their sugar. Maybe that's why they crash, because they're phased out, kind of stuff. So information like that is becoming life-saving, and they have it before they even get on site. Because other than that, it's a guessing game why the accident happened and things like that. So those things are really cool. To even just simple stuff like the one a couple of years ago in Brazil, I think it was Brazil, Colombia. They had an issue where gas stations were selling the wrong amount of gas. Because none of us check. You go pump gas. It tells you got 9 gallons at whatever price. We're like, okay, you go back in your car.
The needle moved a little bit.
Was it really 9 or was it 8? You know, kind of thing. So now they made another app like that. You hit it measures how much gas you have in the air. You fill up. You hit it again, it actually tells you how much gallons are in the car.
That was 16.9.
Exactly. And if it's not, they have a button. You hit that button, and record reports that gas station to the authorities for actually having the wrong values. That's awesome. So there's a lot of little cool stuff like that, all the way to really life-saving things like the medical response and stuff like that. So they have some really, really, really cool apps coming out, you know, kind of stuff. And probably the last thing I heard is what they're testing out to be the $0 vehicle. You know, their whole thing is, instead of now paying to have like automatic wipers or those kind of things, a company will pay you to have that option on the vehicle because they want the data. In exchange, you agree to sell them the data for 6 months or a year. And the notion, they call it $0 vehicle, is as you keep adding on option, they keep giving you money for that data. And eventually you're going to get down to where the car costs $0. You know, because the more options you have, the more data you can supply to somebody. And the DOT was looking into that because they have to drive all the highways to make sure they're not obstructed. They have to do that several times during the day. How many cars right now are going down, you know, I-90 or I-12? If they have that data, they can know where the obstructions are. They don't need to physically have vehicles, DOT vehicles, driving up and down.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of data that the cars could be supplying there for sure.
Absolutely, and they're hoping to be able to sell it. You know, and that's where it's going to be, is you and the dealership.
I didn't even think of that for weather report. If you have somebody's GPS coordinates and if their windshield wipers are on, like, boom, that's even more weather data. You have your car's a weather sensor now.
And it's actually, and it'll be accurate down to that feet, because we all been outside where it's raining and they'll be like, chance of rain 20%. And be like, are you serious? You know, you know, it's like raining right now. You know, I think it's more than 20%. You know, when are you going to update to 100?
I'm no expert.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You know, that's the thing. So a lot of that stuff will be helpful. And of course, imagine situations. They talk about tornadoes hitting places. You know, all the cars have the barometers, they have the elevation meters.
Yeah.
How do they know tornadoes are happening?
Well,
They
even
check
air
for pressure
quality,
drops.
amount of oxygen and things like that, air
Absolutely.
mixtures, yeah.
Absolutely. And they need that to make the cars run because of the
Yeah.
combustion fuel mixtures. But that data can be read and is great.
Yeah.
You know, you can get however you want.
Very cool. So a couple important questions. What color is your Mustang, and is it a convertible or a fastback?
Oh, completely convertible. It's a black, beautiful shadow black. You know.
So we almost have an identical car then,
Yeah.
except mine is yellow. That was the
Okay.
color that I got. But I have a convertible as well, so.
Yeah, the yellow is beautiful. The convertible is great, unless
Yeah.
you want big exhaust pipes.
Yeah,
The bracing
yeah.
that I need is a problem.
Yeah.
We got around that.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful shadow black convertible,
Yeah.
premium
awesome.
edition.
Yeah, that's what I got as well. Very cool, very cool.
Wonderful.
Cool. So if people want to find out more or reach you online, where can people get a hold of you?
Okay, definitely. I'm on Twitter at Ophidian, which is OPHE, not I, EDIAN. They can definitely tweet me. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay.
If you want to learn more about car technology, there's Smart Device Link. You can go up there. They have an excellent API. You can Google. They have a lot of videos there happening. Of course, I'm on GitHub, which is also under Ophidian
Okay.
kind of thing. So I guarantee you, if you see an Ophidian with an E, it is me. I've had that since 1992
We'll
when I
make
was
sure
doing
there's a link to that in
GeoCities.
the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I've had it since GeoCities. I'm dating myself.
Oh.
You know, back that was me. So if somebody else has it, please let me know. We're gonna have some things to work out.
This is really cool. What a neat topic, because like as us as developers, like we look at code, but it's always really cool whenever you can make it real. And vehicles are something like we all have to deal with, and we probably all complain about too as developers. It's like things work differently. Like this is how my mind works, so I apologize. But like cruise control, like I don't think I could ever buy a vehicle where when you turn on the vehicle, the cruise control is off, even though it was on the last time the car was on. Like I hate it when you have to like turn it on again. It's like, really? Like I actually think whenever you hit set, it should turn on the cruise. Like I always think about these little things.
Yeah.
And then like your stereo, like turning the volume. Like I always said, hey, if it's off and I'm like trying to turn it up, like why don't you just turn on? Like, what else could I possibly mean by that?
Yeah,
So I always think of like those little things. But I feel like even the people that don't really like think about how to improve it,
Yes.
I think they feel the pain of like bad design decisions and also, maybe not even when they're just using it, but also when they're buying one and like trying to compare things. I mean, it's just such a messy thing that we all have to deal with all the time.
And to be honest, when we grew up with cars, it was a transportation, A to B.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So a lot of the people that really had these vehicles, they were designing. They were all a lot of older designer, which is not bad as far as being an age. But they grew up with a vehicle. What's the vehicle? Make it comfortable. That was about it. Until the bailout, that's when they started switching things around. And then at that point, the vehicles started having a lot more infusion of, there's this cool tech, right? But once again, traditionally, they're not used to a lot of usability stuff because the cars, if you can put in drive, with some manual, put in the first gear, you're good to go. Like on my Mustang, one of the things that agitates me is when I do autocross. Sometimes I do autocross in it. Is I put in the sports mode. I have the toggle switch because I have automatic. If I shut it off and put it back on, it forgets it was in sports mode. Then I gotta put it back on.
I think that's one of those legal rules.
Yeah, and I'm like, I left you there. I want you there. So I understand the pain. But they're trying to go around it. And to just give you an idea on that, like one of the biggest things that really hurt Cadillac, for example, is the big boys, the DTS and the STS, now it's the XTS, right? They lost a big number of sales because they removed the little oopsie handle on top.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted a more carved thing and they thought it'd be a really beautiful handle. They found out a lot of their customers, being an older crowd, they needed that to get in and out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So removing something like that caused such a big hoopla. So now because of that, everybody's kind of weary to say, hey, if we change how this works,
don't change
what's going to be the
anything.
impact? So they're doing the same thing. Let them do it first, that kind of thing, and see lessons learned, from that. So a lot of these things is they're trying to mitigate. Is like if we get the people who grew up with the old cars, we're going to give them the toggle switches. If you're newer, you can switch whatever driving mode in by using the up and down menu, kind of thing. So they're trying to mitigate that by giving you both. But unfortunately, at the same point, they can't do both. And then there's the laws. That require you to do certain things a certain way. But I'm really, really hoping that within the next couple of years, a lot of these cars will get so much better. And what gives me a little hope is like, for example, Lexus. If you get the LS460, the stretch version, it has infrared sensor in the back seats. it measures your temperature, I think 4 or 5 different places on the body.
Okay.
And it automatically decides where to move the vents. Does it go up on top or on the bottom? Because we've been in cars where it's like the vents are blowing, your feet are cold, but you're hot up here, and then you got to flip it down to the feet, and now you're hot up here, right?
Yeah.
So it automatically does that. And Tesla, in the new vehicle, if you notice, they don't really have vents. When the AC comes on, the little thing slide down and expose the vents, kind of thing, and which vents need to be exposed.
Wow.
So they're trying to work on that usability issue. The problem is if you're the first one, there's a learning curve, and then you pay all the glitches. It may be cool until it breaks and you take it back to the dealership
Like
5
the
times.
X-wing doors too. That
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you'd be like, and they're good until you're in a small parking spot. That's the thing.
Yep.
And because we had a friend who was looking into one and he's like, no, I've been in a downtown parking
Yeah, there was a
spot.
guy that's like, no, they don't take up much room, and it goes, and it hits
Yeah,
him in the head. He's trying to do a demonstration, like that's not helping your case.
And that's the thing. And once again, it's a learning curve. A lot of people are used to holding onto the door, getting in and out of the vehicle. When they go up like that, it's an issue. So
Yeah,
there's a
what are you
learning
down to?
curve, to a lot of these things. And that's what I think is stalling some of these designers and developers and all this stuff. But
And I think that's where, like, one of the things that you mentioned that I really picked up on now in my car, a lot of times there's like 3 or 4 different ways to do everything. And that's to, like you said, I didn't think about it, but that's a way to bridge doing it the old way and having a new way for the people who want to do it that way.
absolutely. And it really helps. And that's like, as you know, if you have the premium, you have the paddle shifters.
Yep.
Same thing. They still, you can use that to shift. To a lot of the new cars now, you can move it to the side and do the little manual shifting thing. It's still fully automatic.
Yeah.
But it was a way to try to give people to what they used to. It's like, if I have automatic, but I want to shift it, kind of thing. You still have that option, kind of thing. Yeah, so that's it's good, but it's also bad. It's holding them back because they can't say completely forget this one. We're going to redesign everything from scratch, because as great as it is, and that's taking people who love it, but the average user, they'll be like, and then where do you put that feature? Do you put it in the Honda Civic or do you put it in the Acura? That's another thing. So they got to figure out, R&D is expensive.
We don't have.
Yes.
Do you know where the penguin
No.
is?
No, sorry.
Sorry.
We get visitors here every once in a while.
Yes.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for coming on and talking about smart cars. Very
The
cool.
pleasure. The pleasure is mine.
Don't wait for users to report problems. Raygun gives you complete visibility on errors, crashes, and performance problems affecting your end users. Replicate issues in seconds rather than digging through log files or having to rely on users to report errors or crashes. Raygun gives you a window into how users are really experiencing your software applications, supports all major programming languages and platforms, and integrates with your current development workflow tools too. There's a free 14-day trial, and it takes minutes to implement, so start resolving issues in your application and check it out today at raygun.com.
Right now we're talking to Rob Reynolds, founder of Chocolatey Software. So congratulations, because last time we had you on, there wasn't a Chocolatey
He
software.
was working for the man.
That was almost 3 years ago.
Chocolatey software. That is correct.
That was almost 3 years ago already.
Yeah.
And now he is the man.
There was a Chocolatey at the time, so
Yeah. Very cool. So, like, what's new? I mean, it's been since 3 years ago. Like, what's new?
also 3 years. Kind of capsized that in. So I was working, I think at the time, maybe for Puppet Labs, and I was there for 3.5 years. And I always said that was like my dream job. The only reason I would leave would be to commercialize or do stuff with Chocolatey. And that came to pass. And so in February, I left that, and I've been working with my own business for since that time. And I always had the joke that I would hire people to work for me before I would be able to go full time, and that also came to pass. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So what is the breakdown percentage wise, like scary and exciting?
It's really, all up, all scary and exciting.
Yeah.
I guess the exciting thing is you think you get out and you're going to run your own business, and you're like, yes, finally, right?
All glory.
And it's going to be great. And you get out there and you realize that you just, you step into this like chasm where you're learning millions of things all the time, and it's a good time. It's definitely worth it. But nobody. I mean, you could read all kinds of things to try to prepare for that, but when you actually do step off and you go do that full time, you start learning about a whole bunch of things. So a lot of it's hitting the ground running, and then just continually learning and being very flexible.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
Semper Gumby. That's what I can say.
So I think since the last time we talked to you, you have a lot of like pro and business features added to Chocolatey. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of things that we saw in the open source edition that we wanted to do cost us money to do. And so we did a Kickstarter in 2014, which I believe we talked about the last time I was on the show. In fact, that was the last time I was on the show.
And that's when I got my Chocolatey shirt.
And the whole idea of that was to really ensure the longevity of Chocolatey, ensure that it could be around for the next 15 or more years. And moving from that to...
Not seen off camera as Greg messing with us.
And so I lost my train of thought.
Longevity, keeping Chocolatey around,
Yeah, so keeping Chocolatey around and then moving that into a business model.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Which is great. So what is the business model?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry. Now I remember the question.
Greg can be really distracting,
So with the things that we wanted to do with Chocolatey that we couldn't do in the open source, things like virus scanning and being able to ensure more reliability. And so those are the things that we brought about a pro version. So for individuals that are using Chocolatey at work or at home or whatever, giving them a model where they can have more reliability and using that community repository to install packages, to work with Chocolatey and installing older versions, all that good stuff. And then continually making Chocolatey better for them as well. But we also introduced a side for organizations, and that's Chocolatey for Business. We call it C for B for short. And that really brings about, in the way that most organizations work, they don't want an online repository. They want to have something internal. They can do that completely for free. So they can have an internal repository. They can create their own packages. There's no cost for that. But a lot of times we find that organizations want to be able to reuse packages from the community repository, but they want to be able to internalize everything so that it comes in and it's completely offline.
Well, you want to be able to like host it locally for performance too, right?
And performance, and we started, and of course reliability, right? And so we created Package Internalizer to help meet what they were already doing manually in a lot of these organizations. In a way they could script it. They could put it on TeamCity or Jenkins or whatever they want to use for CI or a scheduled task. And that would give them the ability to pull all these packages in, have them internalized. And within a matter of once it gets released on the community repository, whenever their next schedule runs, they'll have it on a test repository where they can ensure that everything's working right before they push it up to a production repository.
So that way, for example, like if you're using a specific GitHub client, that if there's a version, you can test it out before everybody gets it. So that way, it may not be the latest at the time, but once it's tested and vetted, then it can become the latest internally.
Yeah, and so you also have that point of stability. So just having your own internal repository and deciding when to take in like the next version of Chocolatey and all that, again, you can do all that for free, but you're able to pull that in and stabilize, and this just ramps that process up. The other thing we have is Package Builder, and Package Builder allows us to look at executable installers, MSIs, zips, and be able to point to them. In about 5 seconds, it will generate a fully ready-to-go package. So 70% of the time when it's going through this archive of installers, you're getting a fully ready-to-go deployment in about 5 seconds, so extremely fast. The other percentage comes in because we know there are some, the technical term is craptastic installers out there. But there's some custom installers out there that don't... we're not able to figure out what kind of installer it is, so it doesn't fall into NSIS, BitRock, or any of those others. We got setup, and so we're not able to fully automate it. But we do wrap everything, get it ready, and so then all you need to provide is those additional silent arguments so that it can install silently.
So can it also work with like Apex as well? Some of the
not
newer?
yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
So I heard a yet, so you're working on it.
Yes, we are working on WSA support and Apex. And then we are going to support Windows Nano as well. For those that don't know, Windows Nano is that really tiny version of Windows where they've ripped everything out for security purposes, but it doesn't have MSI, doesn't have anything. And so we have a little rework on Chocolatey so that we can support that environment going in there. So. Cool. Probably early 2018, that will be an open source, so it'll be supported across everything, across the board. Another feature with Package Builder I was getting into was it's not going to be able to figure out things like we call them those mega installers. So like SQL Server, Visual Studio, those things that have a lot of components that they like to install. It needs an XML to do that, and Package Builder doesn't generate that yet. And then, of course, I already mentioned the virus thing. We got a ton of features we've been adding. So we have a new one called Package Audit, and this is huge for organizations. You can actually figure out if you become an event log ninja when you actually installed some MSI, right, and who installed it. But for all those executable installers and everything else, good luck, right? And our package auditing, when you install things with Chocolaty, you're able to see not just who installed it, but when it got installed. So it does keep track of that stuff for you. And so that's pretty big. And then another thing is what we call package reducer or optimizer. So when companies are doing this, what you see on the community repository, you see a lot of packages that are subject to distribution rights, so they can't actually embed the installers into the package file. They have to reach out at runtime. So in organizations, it's exactly the opposite. Everything's in the packages, which makes those files can be a little big, can have a bit of a weight on systems. And so we have our package reducer, which will go in and deflate those new packages down to about 3 or 4K. And then it cleans up everything for them automatically. So we have a couple organizations. One of them just tweeted about it, said they ran the optimize command and it saved them 2.57 gigabytes of space on their machine. So
nice.
I was like, that's pretty amazing.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So you mentioned like being able to you manage package audit. Can I see for a particular package, and maybe this is exactly what it does, and then the answer would be really simple, but can I see exactly like what registry settings are going to change and what files are going to be put on my machine? Is there a way to do that?
Not yet.
Okay.
But that is a feature that we're working on where it's going to start tracking more and more stuff, more of that system changes. So right now, we have that auto uninstaller, and what it does is just tracking the registry keys for the uninstall. So when you install it, 9 times out of 10, it can automatically remove it without an uninstall script.
Yeah, I was just thinking you could have a server process that fires up a container.
We could have something that watches that kind of stuff and then sees all those changes. And there's a few tools out there that do this kind of thing where they can actually see all of the changes that happen on the system. And it's just weeding out the stuff that doesn't apply, right?
Yeah.
Because invariably, if you've ever run Procmon,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
There's a lot of things happening on that system, and so registry keys are getting set. You just have to have an area where you're going to ignore stuff like that.
Well, that's why I was thinking you could fire up a container, run the package in there, and then just do like kind of a before and after. That might be kind of an interesting way of doing it.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do on the community repository is we have our package verifier, and it does exactly that for testing.
Okay.
It just doesn't take a diff.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Right. So one of the things that we were looking at, there's a tool out there called Turbo, and then there's some other tools that are much more. I think there's a Microsoft tool, one or two of those that will also do diffing, where once you run it, you can actually diff the container versus what it started out with, that base image.
So one thing that I've been wanting to ask you, and I just haven't had time to look into it. I know in Windows 10, I believe I asked you this, back in the day whenever we talked to you last time. Windows 10 has some kind of meta package manager, and I don't know if you've done anything with this.
OneGit.
It's called OneGit. Yeah. So like, what is the state of that today, and how does that work with Chocolatey? Or is that just something
That's a fair
ignorable?
question. So it's called package management, sometimes called PowerShell package manager, Windows package management, aka OneGet, and it is that built-in package manager for Windows 10, Windows Server 2016. And we think the name package management is a bit of a misnomer because it doesn't manage any packages whatsoever.
Right.
It only has providers and manages other package managers.
Yep.
And Chocolatey is one. There's a prototype out there. I would suggest not using it, mostly because it was built by Microsoft, not fully featured because it was a prototype I don't know how many years ago, a few years ago. And it might have some security issues, right? And so I would recommend if you're going to use OneGet or package management to manage Chocolatey stuff, there's another provider out there. It's a nice bridge right now. It's called Chocolatey Get. It's written by another Microsoft person. I can't think of the name. June. I can never say it right. But she actually reached out and we had a 2-hour conversation and just to make sure that everything. And so that one's built much better than the original.
I gotcha. Because I'm thinking like as a user, if I just want to install some applications, like I'd probably just use Chocolatey Direct, right? That's probably what you recommend.
That's what we see a lot of. So coming back to why we haven't finished off the provider yet. So we have the official provider that we're working on. We do a lot of prioritization with our customers to figure out what it is that's important to them, what it is they want us to be focusing on. And due to that being a smaller company, a smaller startup right now, we have to have a pretty hyper focus. And so not very many of them, or none of them, are prioritizing getting that provider completed. And so it falls back to open source time, which we don't have a lot of. So we're trying to work with the open source community to really get that done.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it needs to be somebody who's very, very familiar with Chocolatey, very familiar with OneGet, and is very proficient in C# development. So, I don't know if we're looking for a unicorn, but if you're out there.
There you go. Any other features you want to talk about? Anything else you want to plug as relates to Chocolatey?
So a lot of the things that we see when it comes to that business edition, like I didn't know this until I went to work for Puppet. I thought Chocolatey is very much a development type tool for developers. I found when I went to work for a company that does more infrastructure automation and system administrator type stuff, that it was huge in that area. So a lot of system administrators were using Chocolatey, and I was thinking, even at the time that it was written fully in PowerShell before we rewrote it in 2014 to C#, I was thinking, wow, this tool is not that great at that time, but it had a great user interface, and always has. My focus has always been on that user experience, trying to make sure that that's good. And a lot of people are like, it's a command line app.
Yeah.
Well, there's still a user experience when it comes to command line now.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say it's the greatest experience, but it's still pretty good. Like, we finally got a help menu in there, which I thought was huge.
Who needs help?
Help is important. So the only thing that it doesn't have is like a shell where you enter the shell and then you're like, okay, I need to try to figure out what's going on and work through that process. That is something that we've thought about. So a feature that we're thinking about for even open sources, saying, hey, Chocolatey shell, and then it drops into a shell, and you can issue all your commands, and you get kind of the tab completion. You can get tab completion with PowerShell now with Chocolatey, but you get more of that tab completion, the help menus and stuff as you're working through it. And so kind of an interactive shell that you would use with Chocolatey. That's one thing. Another thing that we are looking to do is bringing up quality of packaging. So we have the package validator, which is on the community repository. We're going to bring that back to Chocolatey itself, so that when you actually package up, it's going to give you all that feedback right then and there. And so you can say, hey, I want this to be strict like the community repository, or maybe just apply it to my organization and be able to do that. Additionally, on of course the business model, we're going to add in the ability for organizations to set up their own validations and stuff. So they'll be able to do that as well. Another thing that we're going to add in is, I might install a lot of stuff, right? And so for pro users, people that need a little bit more functionality and above, we're going to add the ability to say, hey, when I install this package, I want to run this script from my machine, either before, after, or instead of that script. And so I'll have the ability to do pre, post, and replace hooks into actual packages, or for all packages. So I might have like a global one. So those kinds of being able to customize the way that Chocolatey runs is kind of huge. I think it's going to be huge anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. It seems like you're working on all the right stuff. Because the reality is, like, you mentioned it being like a developer tool, but I really see it as anybody who is just even slightly tech savvy, just making their life easier, and then being able to just get their system up and running. Because honestly, like, the thing that I want from Chocolatey is to like never really see it. Like, I just want it to make my life easier and be as transparent. Yeah, the whole point is automation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great though. I love the stuff you're doing as far as making the packages more reliable, or I shouldn't say more reliable, but the virus detection and a lot of those types of things. That's really great to see because it's just making my life a lot easier.
Right on.
Okay. Where can people find you?
So I'm online at Fervent Coder, Fervent Coder. And you can find me there at Gmail, Twitter, pretty much GitHub, anywhere. That's where you can find me. The other thing, Chocolaty.org, and that's EY.
Okay.
So we didn't spell it standard because that was the domain that was available.
Okay. Very cool. I love Chocolatey. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Right on. Thanks.
Aspose offers a powerful set of file management APIs with which developers can create applications which can create, open, edit, and save the majority of popular business file formats. Their product range supports a multitude of file formats, including Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, PDF documents, OneNote, Outlook, Project, Visio files, popular image formats, and many others. Aspose produces APIs for .NET, Java, and the cloud, which can be utilized in almost any modern language available today. Visit aspose.com for a free 30-day no limitations trial, and if you get stuck, message the friendly support team for help. All technical support is offered free of charge. And remember, if you are a lucky winner, you will receive a free developer small business license for Aspose.net, a powerful toolkit for working with Word documents in your applications.
And we're excited to have Al Zodke here. He is an architect at J.J. Keller, and he's doing a lot of really cool things there. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Got the message this morning, and busy morning, but registration went well, so that's awesome.
That is well. They really
Yeah.
went over their systems this year and made sure that was a flawless
Oh, yes.
process.
It was smooth as could be.
Yeah, we have to really thank the team for that one.
Shout out to that conference team for that.
So later on this week, you're speaking, and I think the title is KISS, Keeping It Simple.
Yeah, well, the subtitle is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we go from KISS. I think it's a forgotten acronym in our development world. We've got so many acronyms for so many things. And I think we just forget to keep things simple once in a while. We focus too much on big picture and future use and becoming the next Netflix or Amazon and things like that.
And we have all these like patterns and practices. We got to learn them all and use them all. And
Well, maybe not all of them.
maybe not all of them is the point. Yeah,
Right.
I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, sometimes, and I see it a lot with, and I don't want to throw people on the bus here, but younger developers, they learn these patterns. They're great. They want to use them. But they want to use all of them, and sometimes
All in the same class, even.
same class, same file, or sometimes we've got too many classes or not enough classes. So we try and go too big picture sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah. So I've actually heard people say that pretty much every like rule in software is actually derived from KISS. So have you ever thought of that? Do you think that's true?
I never really thought about it that
Yeah.
way, but I can see why. I mean, if
like
you
the
look
solid principles, it's kind of the same
right,
thing.
yeah, solid and the don't repeat yourself. Well, don't repeat it. Well, that's a simple fact.
Yeah.
Reuse it. But sometimes I think we go too far in the name of reuse.
Yeah.
So
And we create our complicated rules just to enforce those simple ones. Like, I heard a lot of people, for the dry principle, it's like, well, if you're going to use it 3 times, that's when you need to do that. It is.
right. Well,
Keep it simpler than that.
as a little preview from the upcoming talk, one of the biggest issues was a 12-line JavaScript package that broke the internet.
Yep.
Left pad.
Yep. Everybody's
Did you
remember that.
really need the dependency on that? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know what some of the stuff that you're working on is some, enterprise software that's been around for, dozens of years.
Right.
And a lot of that just builds cruft over time. Like when we're in that situation, when we're, it's maybe not even something we've written, we've inherited. How do we go about keeping that simple?
I think what we had started out simple when it was built.
Yep.
And it like you said, it just kept getting added layers and layers. And right now we're trying to find the right time and the right precision to start bringing it simple again.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at some performance issues we need to do. At that point in time, we can start saying, that pattern we want to keep, that pattern we want to get rid of, that we want to do differently, and take what was simple 10 years ago and turn it into what's simple now. Because 10 years ago, there wasn't Entity Framework or the IOC containers weren't as prevalent as they are now.
Or even
So,
some of the language features that are available in all the different languages.
yes, I'm sick of loops. No more looping. Use select.
So I'm picturing your session, like everybody walks in and you're like, keep it simple, stupid, and then that's it. Is that it? Or are there other things to cover?
it's a big picture of Gene Simmons and no. I thought about that and I'm like, nah.
Yeah. So what clever
too
things do
obvious.
you have in there?
So I've got in there, I've got some buzzword bingo stuff in there, and we've got some acronyms. And what I'm looking to get across is kind of talk through different things that I see where we overcomplicate things at a high level Database is a big one.
Yep.
Microservices are all the hot rage right now. Talk about some of those things, and maybe we don't need them. Maybe we can keep them simpler. And then move into some patterns and other acronyms, tools, left pad example. And then towards the end, I want to talk about things I've seen in code bases that seem simple, but they maybe aren't. A big example is the service class. We can't put anything in a controller anymore. So we took everything that used to be in a code behind for web form.
Yep.
Then we moved it to a controller, and now we moved it to a service. And it's just coordinating. So we inject email service and database service and repositories and unit of works. And then we still have this giant function that I don't know if it's simple or not. I can't test it. I can't do it unless I start adding
Or it's
more
or it's
complexity.
like manager.
Yeah, manager, factory, service.
Yeah.
And so talk through some of those things and some of the scheduled jobs that we run at night, how we overcomplicate them. They have one simple job to do, but we inflate it with all these other patterns. If it needs a database, just use it. Don't jump through 10 hoops to get to it.
Okay, so it sounds like step one is like realizing that you have a problem, and then step two.
Don't give away the ending.
Did I sort of predict some of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nostradamus over here.
Well, we're not publishing till after the session.
Well,
so
then
it's
we're
okay.
all good.
Yeah.
At the very end, it's all this shows that we're never focused, or we tend to not focus on the problem at hand. We focus on the technology.
Yeah.
I want to use Azure. I want to use React. I want to use Angular. I want to repository, dependency injection, functional, DDD, on and on and on. We stop looking at what are we actually writing software to do.
Yeah.
So that's the ending. Thanks.
Yeah. so realizing you have a problem. Yeah.
Hit pause on the publish button until after Wednesday.
Yeah. So realize that you have a problem, and then, stop chasing those things. And then, like, what are the other major themes? Because I think Carl kind of brought up the next one is like, unfortunately, I'm usually inheriting this pile of non-KISS. What is the opposite of KISS?
I don't know.
Ooh, we need to come up with that before your session.
Yeah.
Complicated, idiot, or something, but it has to be a word.
Yeah. The closest I could come up with is the big ball of mud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do have that, you just slowly, you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
Because companies aren't going to let you say, yep, I need a year and a half to rewrite that thing.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Because that's not business value, right?
No. So you start slowly and do what you can where you can. So
yeah, because ideally, right, like you're always trying to deliver that business value. So you're gonna untangle the ball of mud, or whatever you call untangling a ball of mud.
yeah, I don't
smash.
slime off.
You're gonna smash the ball of.
dry it out and then smash it maybe.
Yeah, you're gonna smash the ball of mud, but ideally, like, the business isn't gonna see it. They're just gonna see an increase in productivity over time.
Right.
So
And
okay.
one of the other things that I'm focusing on, and I'm trying not to delve too much in there in my talk, is I live in Knoxville now, so there's a growing number of functional programmers out there, and so I've taken an interest in that. So one of the things I'm learning from that is they focus on small functions that do one thing, take data in, take data out, easy to test. So to unravel stuff, take your business and turn it into a true testable function, and put all the other cruft around it in some sort of coordinating class. And I think that'll help, because I can write to a database. I know I can write to a database. Why am I messing? Let's put that over here, and we'll worry about the piece that says I created the correct thing to put in the database.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So in your talks, then, I mean, you mix in some comedy, or like what's your style? I haven't seen one of your presentations.
No, I did a message Q1 a few years ago. It was the first one I've done at a bigger show, and I was really nervous, speaking really quickly. I'm like, I'm gonna be done in 20 minutes. I'm gonna get, and then somebody asked a question, and from there it just fell into place. And the next thing I know, I was like, I gotta hurry up. I'm almost done.
Yeah, exactly.
I try mixing a few jokes. I've got a couple early on. I like demos. I typically don't use coding demos, or if I do, they're already done and they're things I can run. People don't want to watch me type. I can't spell to begin with. They don't want to watch me type.
Yeah.
And so if I do anything, I'll have screenshots or things like that, so I can go through the PowerPoint. I don't have to mess around with duplicate, unduplicate, reduplicate. So I try and bring some humor. I like talking about concepts more than this is how you build a React application. This is how you build an Ang. I like more.
You can go on YouTube for that.
Yeah, I like things
Yeah.
that make people think. Something like Kiss makes people think. In the past, it was on solving business problems using messaging patterns. And so I kind of like that type of talk.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention? Anything you want to plug?
No, I don't have anything to plug.
Anything
That-
else top of mind?
Come back to that conference.
Yeah.
Come and see us.
Hopefully everybody saw your session.
Hopefully. It's Wednesday after the water park party, though. So, ooh.
Oh, geez. What time? What time is it at?
10:30 on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So where can people find you online, though?
The best place is Twitter at
Okay.
@alzautki.
We'll have a link in the show notes.
They'll have a link in the show notes. I've got a GitHub repo out there. Zautki is the name of the repository. There's not a whole lot out there. And I've got a defunct website / blog that I'm hoping to get up and running. And that's zautki.com as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for
Well,
coming
thank
on.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks.
Thanks, Carl.
Yep.
Good to see you guys.